on the recording because it's been forever and a millennium since we've used this stuff. It's like the old proton packs. We have to make sure they work, man.
So, Happy New Year to you.
Yeah. God, man. When was the last time we did a show? And of course, you know, it's funny. Bob was available the week before. Now Bob is, instead of bitless, we're Bobless. I don't know where this eye is.
Have any of them spoken to you in a while?
No, I was speaking. I spoke with a lot of them last week. And they're like, there were 4 awes to damn bit.
What?
Because you were supposed to be around last week, and then the mother-in-law, and then it's just, that's... So I don't know where. My guess is too many false hangs. I know where Bob is tonight. I don't know where this eye is. Kami's showing on, but my guess is he's asleep. Let me see if he's asleep. So how was your 8 crazy nights?
It went well beyond 8 crazy nights. It's just been crazy, and you know, my mother-in-law is back, but I don't know. It doesn't seem that there's. It's hard to explain. It's just like life is not kind of settling the way I thought it would.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am. For those of you who don't know, my essential plan, as it were, was I was going to have been moved. And tragedies of tragedies, basically I rented a place.
Wait, you're in a different place now?
Well, I was going to be, but I'm not. I was going to be moved to a place that's much better. I was going to put a green screen up, basically build a studio in a corner. It's going to have, everything's going to be great. Then, like 6 days before I'm supposed to move in, I get notified that the owner of the property had decided to sell it. And I could like exercise my 30 days, but I was going to be homeless. And so I just said, give me my money back. And I've been basically for the last going on 3 weeks now running around like a chicken with my head cut off looking for another workable place in the same budget, and I'm not finding one, so I'm probably going to have to spend more. Which sucks. So that's been my brand of chaos. I have been half keeping up with tech. I'm not even sure what the devil is going on. Let's see. I mean, ugh. It's like I'm debating about what to do the show about.
I haven't followed tech in forever. All I know is I'm going to get a BlackBerry next month.
You mean a crackberry, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm actually, my palm is so old at this point. It doesn't, you know, my wife's 4G is quick as crap, and I'm tired of it. The battery is beginning to.
Come on! You must be in love with your WebOS forever and ever and ever.
But I mean, the hardware is just not. It's fun.
Yeah. I mean, really, most of the news I have in here are dated. The most interesting thing I have in here is a humping dog video. And that some crazy person made a humping USB drive that humps your...
I do know this. And people... Are we already recording, by the way?
Yeah, I'm going to decide where to cut in. I have no idea where that's going to be.
I have followed Apple a little bit. And it was interesting. Tim Cook was saying that China's market is going to overtake the U.S. one. Now, as far as I understand, we can go in 3 directions. Either one, Apple is able to score more profit off of Chinese sold products into the Chinese consumer base than they do the U.S. consumer base, which I don't understand how that's. I do know because when we did our subsidies, China does have some subsidies. Not everything is subsidized as it is, but they certainly do have that.
But China is one of the few markets where Apple literally could make it up on volume.
Well, the thing, here's my thing: is the Chinese consumer base is not as large as the U.S. consumer base
At the present.
And well, they're not doing much to change that either. I mean, that's remember all the predictions years ago that there would be 22% growth in GDP and everything went the reverse for China. Similar to Japan, and I warned everybody the same thing when we were having these discussions.
Oh, stop being an economist.
I warned the same shit, but I found that intriguing, the statement, okay, because it's making me scratch my head, and I got to review their earnings report. I think it comes out. Did it already come out, or is it coming out tomorrow? I can't remember.
Somebody who doesn't trade their particular stock, I don't keep up with that particular one.
And basically, if it's one thing, which I'm not saying it is, it could be that U.S. desire for Apple's products are moving elsewhere. Something that you and I have discussed, but I don't have proof of that. I'm just saying that could be a possibility.
I have intangible proof of that, in that it's not a hard statistic, but it's a word on the street statistic, and that is through no intervention of my own, just observation. This isn't me pitching Android or WebOS or BlackBerry or my opinions on Apple at all. It's just I am hearing an increasing number of iPhone owners, and this is iPhone 4 and 4S owners, who are not excited about the iPhone 5, and they've pretty much made their decision when they get rid of their iPhone to get something else. I can't say if that's just the people I'm stumbling across, if that's the overall demographic, but it's kind of the shiny factor has clearly begun to wear off of Apple.
Well, I certainly do know more people at this point that are really switching to Android, and they ask me, and I honestly tell them, I said, look, I'm as much not an Android fan as I was iOS, and I try to steer them to BlackBerry, but there's no
but you know what? In the mobile arena, what Android has going for it, and at this point I have mixed feelings about Android because of the direction in which it's going.
Before you start that, it's everything that you used to say. You know that I'm telling you, like my in-laws that were big iPhone people and stuff. Boom! They're telling me, oh no, we seem to be able to do more.
Well, no,
the big guys.
Well, no, and that's a combination of two things. One, I know, but it's a combination of two things that's causing that. Thing one is the device is open enough, more open that it can inherently do more. You know, it has better multitasking, not actual multitasking, but better multitasking. It gives more tools to work with, therefore the apps can do more. But the other thing is, because of the way it was marketed and the way it was deployed and everything else, at this time, it is the Windows of this form factor, which means it's where the developers gravitate. It has that momentum at this point, and even though there's Windows 8 coming out and all the Windows phones and slates, it's going to be a really hard momentum to overtake. And a combination of those two things, like you're saying, is even the average user, they're like, I can just get it done over here.
Yeah, this guy was he was a die-hard iPhone guy, die-hard. And now he's Android, big time Android. I mean, so it was you know, I said, yeah, my wife has a Razor, she still has it and enjoys it.
Well, and the other thing is, I can't put my finger on how they do it, but somehow, through a combination of the Droid and the indirect marketing, Android has become cool. I can't figure out how.
Well, it's not, I don't know, no one has said it's cool. Well,
it's not like
the reasons people like their iPhone, if I can say this at least, the reasons that people that I said like their iPhones were not the same things that they said why they like the Android. But what you and I were always talking about before, in terms of once the fluff wears out, and I mean, you really only want to shell out a certain amount of money for
Fluff.
I guess, yeah, fluff and more luxurious than productivity. But that really went my argument for almost all mobile platforms. I've always argued that if you're going to start saying these things are going to be replacing desktops, you better start adding some more fuel to the fire.
Well, see, that's the thing. They're not ready for that, but so many people are using Google services now, and it's become their augmented thing, that the reality is you can justify buying the Android device as part of the Google ecosystem as not a replace your computer, but an augment device, which is what it is good at right now.
Right. So, but I'm not saying that's what it was from Tim Cook's. I'm just saying that's one possibility. Or the profit margins are higher in China. But people, I'm sure, say, Mr. Bit, well, China has way more people than the United States. They do, but they do not have a consumer base as large as ours. It is very different. They are a hybrid economy. They do have free zones, but they have very few people in terms of their entire population participating in those free zones. And in terms of consumption that we're talking about for economic dealings. We're totally excluding central planning and central distribution through government, short of the Chinese government buying iPhones for its entire population. When that day comes, then Apple would become extremely enormous, in terms of how many iPhones it moves. But I hope that that doesn't have to be said, even though I did say it. And here's something else. It says Apple trailing China's CoolPad shows need for cheap iPhone tech from Bloomberg. I haven't read this article, so I have to see how credible it is.
What I honestly think when that becomes the real sticking point, because it's becoming an increasing sticking point that you can get the free to cheap Android phone, and it's harder with Apple. However, what I see Apple doing at some point in the future, when that really becomes the issue, is doing the same thing a lot of Android manufacturers are doing, which is making a modified version of their older phone that has enough RAM to run the modern OS. And then just, like basically an iPhone 3S with enough RAM to run iOS 6. Know what I'm talking about?
Here's another thing. It just popped up on Bloomberg. Because I'm surfing Bloomberg right now. It says Jobs threatens suit if Palm didn't agree to hiring terms.
Which hiring terms?
It says founder Steve Jobs suggested the computer maker collude with Palm to prevent the companies from hiring employees away from each other, according to a court filing in an antitrust lawsuit. In 2007, Jobs called Edward T. Culligan, who was then Palm's chief executive officer, to propose the arrangement, and during that call suggested that if Palm didn't agree, Apple might file patent infringement claims against it. According to the filing yesterday...
How Microsoft of Jobs?
The declaration of Culligan was filed in a lawsuit claiming the iPhone maker and other technology companies violated antitrust laws by entering into agreements to not recruit each other's employees. The other defendants include Google, Intel, Adobe, Walt Disney, Pixar's animation unit, Intuit Inc., and Lucasfilm Limited. Culligan rejected Jobs' proposal on August 24th of 2007, emailing saying his idea is not only wrong, it is likely illegal, and the threat of patent litigation is just out of line, according to the filing. Jobs, who died in October of 2011, responded by saying Culligan's response wasn't satisfactory to Apple because Palm was actively recruiting Apple employees. Oh, you don't, this is what Apple does, right? Well, this is actually on the layering. More places that are more attractive.
You know what? As the woodwork comes out of that Steve Jobs really was Steve Jobs, the poor Apple fanboy has to just be having a split personality syndrome. They're like, but I love Steve Jobs. But Steve Jobs was like what I thought Bill Gates was. but I'm, but I, evil, good, confused, not.
That's pretty screwed up. Okay, I'll admit that.
Oh, that's not the first time Apple was doing stuff like that, though. Apple's been known to do things like that before. It really did take the finesse of somebody Jobs like to kind of just go, ignore that thing, that big black thing over there. It's been sweeping under the rug. I mean, Apple never liked competition ever. It has not been Apple's friend pretty much since the beginning. Apple as a company has always felt it has a monopoly on the arenas in which it participates, and that isn't true. It's how it likes to think of itself.
Sometimes. Oh, a lot of there are other companies guilty of that.
Oh yeah, well, as you were naming that thing, Google's, and I'll give that to Microsoft too. At one point, it was Yahoo, not anymore.
Yeah. Yep.
So I mean,
interesting though on Apple's trailing China's Coolpad. Interesting. When is Apple's earning date?
You're gonna make me look it up now.
Its earnings date. I think it might be.
First quarter earnings date is the 23rd, so it is correct. It's, yeah.
Okay, it's tomorrow. Okay. All right, that's good. We'll find out tomorrow. That'll and if iPhone sales are up, then I don't know what Timothy Cook is talking about, other than, all right, if you're going to make more revenue in China, I know they're.
Well, that's going to depend. And I say that because the last time Apple's earnings came out, Apple's sales were up, but they were not up as much as expected, and it was the first time in forever, because Apple always kind of underestimates where they think they're going to be so they can exceed them and look good to investors. It's kind of their formula. And for the first time in a long time, it wasn't that they did bad, it was that they didn't do their usual double whammy of we did good and then we did better than we were supposed to do. Which it's kind of the sign of, is the next time they're not going to make it?
Well, their stock went up a little bit.
But Apple's stock always does this around this time because of the day traders.
It was this low again January 27th is at 447. And
their stock's going to be a yo-yo for the next 3 days as people try and cash in on good or bad news.
And its lowest was 485 on January, like last week. So it's at 504. I love this. Remember all the Apple idiots out there? The stock's going to hit 1,000 before 2013 and all this other shit.
Didn't do it.
We had a show for this. I said, no way it's happening. No way. Remember that?
That's like the people who say gold's going to hit 3,000.
If gold actually hit 3,000, it would surpass the value to money expansion that we had in the 70s.
And then we could go back on the gold standard.
No, gold standard is not good for you. All you need is fiscal discipline, but in gold is obviously doesn't.
Okay. Both of those things are never going to happen in our lifetimes, so get over it. Why spend? Why not spend?